Yeah, the way things are right now is absolutely hideous, and I don't have an answer, a straight answer to say, right, this will happen or that will happen. I think we do need to deal. What I do think, though, if we had a national basic income, just taking it nationally, it would actually decrease the pressure on London, because people would be able to stay in other, would be able to go other places. Perhaps, a lot of people that don't actually want to be in London would be able to leave and be able to build lives outside of London, and thus reduce the pressure on housing. I'm also part of the European network for unconditional basic income, and one thing that we're looking at the moment is something called the Euro dividend, which is proposed to be paid for by VAT, which would give everybody in Europe an income of 200 euros. Now, in the UK, obviously, that's not going to mean a whole lot, although as a benefits advisor, I know that even just 50 euros a week would make a huge difference in the people's lives that I work with. All right, just having that unconditional and not having to go to anybody for it would make a massive difference. I mean, the Citizens Income Trust, for their sort of JSA rate of citizens' income, which is about £71 something, they always say that yes, you would have housing benefit on top of that, at least in the short term. But I also think that some kind of Euro dividend or a global basic income, which is we're fighting for basic income to be a global human right, would make a massive difference in terms of how people are they're forced to move. I mean, what is this? All right, that millions of women move to the global north in order to look after other women's kids, or other people's old people. This is just outrageous, all right? And the fact that they don't have enough to live on in their own countries is criminal. It's just criminal. And so I think reducing those sorts of impetus, those sorts of pushes that people have to actually leave because they have to leave their own countries or leave their own areas, or, leave the north or leave Wales or whatever in order to survive. I mean, this is the real crime. And again, I mean, if people had a basic income, where they are, they would be able to build their economies in those areas, and that would really relieve the kind of pressure that we're seeing in London in particular. If basic income were introduced tomorrow, and I would say, I would be arguing for something a bit more than JSA. I'd be wanting at least 14,000 a year or 15,000 a year. That would, be almost enough to pay for rent in London. But even that would actually be quite a benefit for a lot of people. They would be able to pay their rent without, and then they'd have the rest of the money that they actually work for, which they earn through a job. They'd be able to pay other sorts of expenses. So, again, I don't, while yes, housing is a massive issue, and I think we'll have to deal with it. I think actually what we really have to get in mind is that everybody has the right to exist, and for me, that's what basic income really establishes. So that's that one. Should it be low or high? I have to say that I'm really divided myself on this subject. As a benefits advisor, as I said before, I know that, a lot of people would benefit from, just £50 a week unconditionally. However, I think it would be much more beneficial if we all had enough to live on. And as a campaigner, politically, you always start the negotiation high. That's, if you want to win something, then you start by demanding everything you want and not settling for something which is less than that. What was it? There was regulation, supplemental regulation needed. I didn't quite understand that point, to be honest.
It's kind of the issue that the powers that be always find a way to undermine.
Yeah, again, I mean, I think here we're also dealing with the question that, we're dealing with sort of 400 years of work ethic and the Protestant work ethic, and would there be supplementary regulations, how people spend their money, or what? That's what I don't really quite understand. Would it?
I think the question was regarding point, so production processes would remain the same. So you give all these people this money, but the
Right.
powers that be will still define modes of production, and so you basically be reinforcing the same effect. I think that was the idea, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to go into that. I don't know. It's something I have not thought about, so I'll just have to say, sorry, I don't know. Do you want to,
Well, just
David, do you want to?
Something
Yeah.
interesting about, because basically from this right to refusal, you have this ability to
Yeah.
disrupt certain modes of production. So if you're a worker and you're involved in a particularly exploitative work practice, or even you're concerned with other people along that production line who are involved in exploitative work practices, you can withdraw yourself, and so there's this disruptive element. And I agree with you, I think there's a certain faith that we will disrupt, and there will be this coming together of people willing to disrupt. So I think it ultimately rests on that idea that people will take it upon themselves to perform that kind of disruptive function. So there is a certain faith going on.
Yeah, and also just on the question of, changing people's minds. Again, as I say, we are actually trying to shift 400 years of work ethic that has been rammed down people's throats and, and been not just rammed down people's throats, but also internalized, all right? A lot of people really feel that, that if, that you shouldn't actually earn it, you shouldn't have the right to exist. If you don't do something which the market pays for, therefore you don't have the right to exist. And that's really what the government at the moment is trying to push. So, to me, yes, basic income definitely means a huge shift in consciousness. So, okay.
We seem to have some more questions, so I'll start with Clive. I'll start with Clive.